I started reviewing DACs after reviewing the SMSL M400 Topping D90 and Bursting Composer because I felt if you have any of those DAC or same level, it is good enough. Sure, getting a better DAC will improve certain things, but I think once you have gotten yourself a certain level, your money is best invested elsewhere. For example, you will get more return if you spend it on a pair of speakers. Now, of course, that is assuming you like the sound of like those modern DACs. Now, behind the scene, I have turned down many offers to review DACs. Especially everyone and their grandma and the dog and the cats have been making videos on DACs. How many more videos do we need on DACs? That is why I am trying to limit my videos on DACs, and if I decide to make a video on a DAC, it has to have a good reason. For example, recently I said yes to the SMSL VMV-D1 SE because their VMV1 line is their premium line, and I'm curious. Now today I am going to talk about the AUNE S8 DAC. It's interesting because it is their flagship DAC, and I was curious how it compares to some of the more expensive mainstream DACs I've tried in the past. So let's talk about it today. Now, Hi-Fi Go sent me this DAC, and I remember I told them, don't send me anything unless it can rival the DACs I have reviewed recently. They were like, oh yeah, let us send you the AUNE flagship DAC and you will be impressed by its awesomeness. Oh, by the way, they also sent me the entry-level AUNE S8 DAC a while ago, which I have already made a video on. Believe it or not, despite me having a lot of DACs at my home, I use the entry-level AUNE S8 on my desk every day because it's small and it sounds good. Keep in mind, today we're talking about the S8, not X8. Okay. So therefore, when they told me they are going to send me their top of the line, the best of the best AUNE S8 DAC, I was like, oh yeah, send it. Now, for those of you who are interested in getting any AUNE products, consider ordering from them. No, I am not affiliated with them, nor am I getting paid if they sell 1 million units, but I do appreciate them for sending me the unit. So, what does $998 USD AUNE flagship DAC has to offer to stand out in today's highly competitive market? Well, first, let me put up the specs. A few things caught my attention in their marketing material. First, instead of using an off-the-shelf solution, they use a low-phase noise PLL clock designed by Titan Audio Lab. Second, it uses the latest ESS9038 Pro DAC chip. Third, the USB input uses 2 femto clock, and it comes with a customized USB software drivers from Titan Audio Lab. Sounds impressive on paper, but for me, you can put a nuclear precision clock in it for all I care. If it does not sound good, who cares? Next, the DAC has all the inputs you can fancy, and it supports up to DSD512. But that's kind of expected in today's market. We are so spoiled. What is missing though is that it does not have Bluetooth, and for some, that can be a deal breaker. Now, I have this unit for over 6 months, and I had a chance to lend it to many people. To help evaluate this unit, I have Mr. Jazz, Mr. Quad, Mr. DIY, Mr. Amplifier, Mr. Hitachi, Mr. Kanta, Mr. First One, Mr. Dying Audio, Mr. 707, and Russ help me out. Now, given there are so many people, I will not introduce them one by one, nor will I list out what everyone thought of the unit, but will combine them together instead. So, how do I summarize the sound? This is a neutral, transparent, linear sounding DAC. For some, it might even be slightly on the cool side of neutral. Ideally, you would want to pair it with a system with a bit of warmth. The DAC is extremely revealing and detailed, but not bright or harsh. Russ told me the other day, he actually does not hear a lot of differences when it comes to DAC. For example, when he compared the Bluesound Note 2i to the Volumio. He really had to concentrate to hear a difference, and even then. However, it was quite a shock for him when he first powered up the AUNE S8. He can hear a big difference. The clarity and detail really jumped out for him. Next, the mid-range is neutral and extremely clear. With the right setup, it is fluid and smooth. The S8 has excellent bass response. Bass is not exaggerated and it digs deep. The S8 is dynamic and it has a very good grip on the bass. Finally, the soundstage is quite wide and deep. The unit is dead silent with fantastic speed and timing. Now, unlike before this time, I involve audiophiles beyond my normal circle, my normal audiophile circle, to test this DAC. And it's great because I got more real-world feedback. Altogether, including me, there were 11 of us. Interestingly, I got some conflicting conclusions, but I find that normal because I believe synergy and taste will affect the outcome of an evaluation. So, let me start with the negatives. Although all of us agree that this unit is exceptionally good at detail, micro details, imaging, and accuracy, 3 of us found it fatiguing for long listening sessions. The strength is also its weakness. As Mr. Amplifier put it, he was so captivated by all the details that he forgot to listen to music. Now, having said that, the rest 8 of us did not find it fatiguing. The second negative, because it is linear sounding, it can sound thin in the midband with especially bad recordings. This is not a forgiving DAC. Good recordings will sound great and crappy recordings will sound terrible. I would not use this DAC in a system on the cool side of neutral. Also, for some people, neutral sounding gear can be a bit boring. But if your system already has a certain color, it is great because it will not affect it and preserve the sound characteristic. Third, the website sucks. You're probably wondering, who cares? This annoys the hell out of me because you can't find the custom USB drivers on their website. And the only place you can get it is on a CD included in the box. Man, who uses CD today? Now, before we move on to the positives, let me give you a breakdown what 11 of us thought about the unit. 3 of us found it a bit too analytical. 3 of us found it good. 5 of us found it very good, with 2 of them already have bought the unit. And Mr. DIY is also planning to buy it. He liked this DAC more than his $5,000 DAC because it is slightly less aggressive. Although it is very detailed, it is not harsh or bright. So, why should you consider this DAC over the gazillion DACs flooding the market right now? First, it has speed and good timing. Now, I was chatting with Mr. First Watt, about this because he plays the piano and timing is important for him. You know, I used to play the electric organ and piano when I was a kid. And man, I always had a problem with timing. So I asked Mr. First Watt on how do we explain this timing feeling? It is not absolute in the sense you can't measure it. It's a feeling. After all, it's not like music is going to play faster on the AUNE S8. A 4-minute song will still be 4 minutes, not 4 minutes and 1 second, nor 3 minutes and 59 seconds. Now, I like Mr. First Watt's explanation. It's like you have a metronome, going tick, tick, tick at 80 beats per minute. The music playback is going at 80 beats per minute. If it doesn't have good timing, it feels like it's going at 79 bits per minute. Now, apparently he got heavily coached by his piano teacher, so he's very sensitive to that. When the timing is not there, the music falls apart for him and he starts to lose focus and engagement quickly. So that's why Mr. First Watt bought one. He had the topping D90 before, and when he asked me for advice on what is a better DAC to get, I told him, yeah, go for the AUNE S8, and for him it was a good solution. I know I toe tap a lot more with this DAC. Now, the second thing I like about the AUNE S8 is the sound. For me, the DAC is extremely detailed, refined, free of digital glare, and above all, not aggressive. I hate it when DAC tilt up the top end to give an illusion of being very detailed. Now, this DAC being non-aggressive is the reason why Mr. Dying Audio bought it, and also why Mr. DIY will buy it. The soundstage is wide and deep. The other day, Mr. DIY dropped by Mr. Quad's place to listen to the AUNE S8. And one of the questions he asked Mr. Quad was, how come the soundstage is bigger than the last time he was there? And Mr. Quad said, well, it's because of the AUNE S8 DAC. Now, having said that, I have to be transparent with all of you. Mr. Amplifier was not able, he was able to get the width, but not the depth in the soundstage. So, synergy, perhaps. Now, I hope to go listen to his system one day when the pandemic is over because his system looks amazing. Next, the mid-range is fluid, smooth, and have enough texture. Mr. Quad, being a musician, finds the mid-range really natural in his system. Actually, the sound quality of the AUNE S8 is good enough to convince Mr. Quad and Mr. DIY to let go of their high-end $5,000 DAC. Next, I like how quiet the DAC is, and usually I hear that mostly only in higher-end DACs. With this DAC, it is easy to pinpoint where everything is. Third, once you load the customized driver in JRiver, you can choose to use the AUNE ASIO drivers. Now, for those of you who don't know, ASIO streams the audio directly into the interface without the OS needing to process it first. Now, this is supposed to reduce latency. My own reference DAC, the Exasound E28, has only ASIO drivers. Does it sound better with ASIO drivers? Some people say no in theory because bits are bits, but I will leave it to you to try. So let's wrap it up at this point. Now, for some of us, the AUNE S8 definitely can challenge the higher price DACs from a few years ago. Now, I say a few years ago because we have only A/B tested it against higher end DACs from a few years ago. Ever since I started receiving DACs for review, I stopped buying DACs, so I don't know how these DACs compare to more modern high-end DACs. I know the Meitner MA1 DAC I recently talked about does beat this AUNE S8, but that's like 7 times the price. Now, compared to my own reference DAC, the Exasound E28, that had an MSRP of 3,000 something, the AUNE S8 does do certain things better. For example, more detail and a bigger soundstage. My E28, on the other hand, has more warmth and smoothness in the mid-range. So high-priced DACs from yesterday no longer is a clear winner when compared to these newer DAC, well, especially this AUNE S8. Now, I want to end the video by giving everyone something to think about. If you bring this AUNE S8 home and the bass is not as deep as I mentioned, what can you conclude? Thomas is lying because he got bought off by Hi-Fi Go? Have you ever considered this? Your amp is not powerful enough to drive your speaker to its full potential. So even if you add a more capable DAC, you're not going to get the performance that I've described today. For example, to get that deep bass, you might need more power from your amp to start off with. Now, of course, what I just said applies to the other DACs I have reviewed. Now, I bring this up because I noticed from reading the comments from some videos that some people don't realize this. If you drive your speaker with an underpowered amp, no DAC you put in the system is going to give you deep bass. So that is why I started the video by saying it is best to spend money on the rest of your system when you have a decent DAC already. Sure, if you don't have a good DAC and you want to buy a DAC with the intention of upgrading the rest of your system next, yes, you can give this AUNE S8 a try. That is also one reason why I like testing DACs on a system that is expensive, because I don't want the rest of the system to be the bottleneck. So guys, if you are looking for a DAC that is beyond the topping D90 level, and you are looking for a neutral sounding, highly resolving DAC, the AUNE S8 is a good candidate. For me, I have 2 reference DAC, one expensive and one less. Originally, the Denafrip Ares 2 was my less expensive reference. And unless my audiophile buddies want this AUNE S8, this will become my new, less expensive reference DAC. Alright guys, I'll see you next time.